Part 16. I'm Really Immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Rusiahua. Chapter 151. Lu Chang'an killed the rooster, processed the chicken feet and buttocks, removed the chicken neck, and left the comb. After cleaning the internal organs, he chopped the chicken into large and small dices, and then stir-fried it over high heat. Following one, pour the whole pot of chili pepper with 1 weight, heavy oil and heavy salt, and stir-fry a pot of spicy rooster. The red soup is as red as blood, and the chicken and chicken offal are mixed with the fiery red pepper. The whole pot will scare those who can't eat spicy food. Although southern Hunan is famous for its spicy food, Lu Chang'an has always thought that the dishes here in Juncha are not very spicy, especially the rice noodles and rice noodle soup. It looks quite spicy, but in fact, in order to take care of the common taste, it's just a salty taste, not spicy in any way. Spicy rooster is a dish that does not rely on special varieties of chili peppers, chili powder, chili pepper and the like. It is the representative of the spicy cuisine in southern Hunan. Even in the surrounding provinces that are traditionally known as spicy food, it can be talked and laughed with. Not many people eat this dish calmly. Eating it in summer, especially after the heat all over the body, refreshes the spirit and the delicious taste blooms on the tongue buds. Lu Chang'an made the spicy rooster and baked the rice noodles he bought from the wet market. Juncha's rice noodles are usually as big as the head of a chopstick, soft and lacking in texture. They are more like round vermicelli than rice noodles. There are also those called rice noodles, which are divided into round noodles and flat noodles. Lu Chang'an's kind is also called round noodles. Some people also call those thinner noodles rice noodles. There are many different names. After baking, the moisture in the rice noodles was reduced. After carefully rolling and baking until the entire rice noodles shrank in size, Lu Chang'an was satisfied. There was no other way. The rice noodles in the entire Juncha area were like this, so they could only be roughly processed like this. Take some time to visit Qingshan town, where Lu Chang'an's favorite rice noodles are produced. In the evening, after An Nuan and Zhou Dongdong finished eating rice noodles, Lu Chang'an sent An Nuan home and then came back. Zhou Dongdong had been reading picture books at Lu Chang'an's house. When Zhou Shuling came back, Lu Chang'an said to make a bowl of rice noodles for her to try. Zhou Shuling was also a little hungry, so she had a midnight snack. She also knew that Lu Chang'an was good at cooking. "Mom, did you help me find my father again today?" Zhou Dongdong chatted with Zhou Shuling. Zhou Shuling was a little embarrassed. "No, I met an uncle I knew and drank tea for a while." "Dads are bad guys who only know how to beat children," Zhou Dongdong said angrily. "Okay, no one wants to find a father for you." Zhou Shuling was also very depressed today. The man she met was a man she had been on a blind date with before, and he asked one of Zhou Shuling's aunts to make an appointment with her. What he meant was that since I have already bought a house and can consider marrying her after she pays off her debt. Zhou Shuling was so angry that she threw tea in his face. "Children, feed them as you please and they will grow up. You don't have to feel sorry for the child without a father." Lu Chang'an brought rice noodles over. "I eat many bowls of rice a day, and I grow up quickly," Zhou Dongdong said while looking at the rice noodles Lu Chang'an brought over. "Do you want it?" Zhou Shuling took it and saw Zhou Dongdong's eyes, so she stretched out the bowl first. Zhou Dongdong pursed his lips, took a few steps back, hugged Lu Chang'an's thigh and looked at the bowl in Zhou Shuling's hand. She didn't dare to eat. "I made a bowl for her in the afternoon." She finished it while crying. She didn't even finish 3 bowls. "If it's not so spicy, I can eat 3 bowls, Zhou Dongdong still opened his mouth. "Just take a small bite." Zhou Shuling fed Zhou Dongdong a bite, and Zhou Dongdong finished chewing the rice noodles and went to drink water while panting. Zhou Shuling also tasted it. She took a mouthful of rice noodles mixed with soup and spicy rooster meat, and her eyes lit up. "This has a unique taste. Although it tastes spicy, It is strong enough. I want to partner up with you and sell breakfast in the morning. Anyway, your breakfast stall also has noodle soup, but the taste is very average. If you use my recipe, the business should be much better, Lu Chang'an said to Zhou Shuling. Zhou Shuling was a little surprised, but nodded, just to make sure. Really? Really, I will buy some suitable rice noodles tomorrow and come back. Let's discuss the sharing. If the sales are good, we can set up a store and make some money to improve our lives. Lu Chang'an is not very interested in making money, because even now, and he still feels that he is very wealthy, this is a feeling, but of course it is not a fact. But to feed the little girl from Shangwen's family, she has to eat chicken every day and make some money. She also has to cause trouble with centipedes, frogs, and snakes every day, destroying the stability of the surrounding ecology. You still plan to make it big? It's not easy to do business, but it's really delicious. Zhou Shuling was not sure, but Lu Chang'an was a person who did what he said. He was reliable and measured in his work, not to mention how much he owed others. There was no reason to refuse the love. As for the share of the money, Zhou Shuling was determined not to take it. It is indeed not easy to do business, but it is easy to make money. Lu Chang'an thinks so. Anyway, let's try it first. The locals should be used to eating this kind of rice noodles. The ones we usually eat are not tasty enough, right? Zhou Shuling finished eating the rice noodles and drank the spicy soup. It feels different now that she eats them in the summer, and they may sell more in the winter. Well, a bowl will warm you up. This rice noodle is called red spicy rooster rice noodle. Lu Chang'an thought of the name. Zhou Shuling's face was covered in sweat after eating, and she took Zhou Dongdong back to take a shower. Lu Chang'an cleaned up the house, threw the hen into the coffin, and then came out after a period of coffin training, locked the carriage, turned on the alarm system, and then walked out. As usual, I went to the grapevines to watch the card games, and then reported to the mahjong parlor. I paid back the water money that the mahjong parlor owner forgot to give last time, walked up the stairs, came to a door on the top of the building, and knocked. Knock. No one opened the door. Lu Chang'an was not in a hurry and continued to knock on the door. After a while, a young man finally opened the door, looking confused and impatient as he just woke up from a deep sleep. Who are you and what are you doing? Lu Chang'an grabbed his head and slapped him on the ground. He beat him repeatedly until he cried like a ghost and howled like a wolf. He fell to the ground paralyzed before Lu Chang'an let him go. Why did you? It's nothing. I have to go out for a little longer than usual. I'm afraid you'll have nothing to do, so I'll just give you a good beating so that you can settle down. Lu Chang'an moved the young man who was monitoring him to the bed. Goodbye, have a good rest. If it's not convenient for you to urinate and defecate, just pull it up. Lu Chang'an left the community, called Qin Yanan and asked her to find someone to help her keep an eye on the car, and then rushed to Qingshan Town. Qingshan Town is in the central part of Shonan Province, not far from Juncha. The drive is about 200 kilometers. It can be reached in a few days at a normal walking speed. It is very close. Qingshan Town is also the hometown of Zheng Shitu. It was the place where the Hunan army first mobilized troops. After the Hunan army was disbanded, many people were unwilling to return to farm work. With the courage and banditry they had learned during the war, they were scattered here and there. The mountains and fields became bandits, and the bandits and hooligans that abounded in Qingshan Town only came to rest in the past 20 years or so. Lu Chang'an walked out of the Shachan district of Junjun at 10 minutes past midnight and began to speed up. He was chasing the moon through the foothills, woodland, rivers, and waterways. The night sky gradually became clear and beautiful. Lu Chang'an's calm breathing, although he had never felt absorbed. I have never seen anything like the vitality of heaven and earth, but if I look carefully at the light of the stars and the moon falling on my body, my skin does have a warmer luster. The air at night was fresh and moist. Lu Chang'an did not follow the highway. Instead, he tried to run on ordinary roads for a while and then took a closer straight line through some mountains and rivers. At dawn, there were more and more barren paddy fields, and stone mountains with almost no vegetation were piled up intermittently everywhere. A national highway passed through it. Lu Chang'an sat by a lotus pond, washed his feet and put on shoes. If you wear them for walking all night, your shoes will be too expensive. Hello everyone, today is the last day of this month. Please click on where to vote. There may be a monthly ticket that will expire if you don't vote today. Can you vote for Xiahua? I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Can Ru Xiahua. Chapter 152. Lu Chang'an put on his shoes and walked back to the road along the lotus pond. The moist field ridges were lined with dense weeds. In recent years, there have been fewer and fewer people working in villages and towns. Even if they do not go out to work, many young people are not interested in farm work. I lost interest, and the field paths that used to have clear paths were gradually submerged. Only when there are many people walking can a road appear, only when there are many people walking can a road be left. In different eras, different social problems will always appear, and then different solutions will emerge to guide the solution of the problems. Lu Chang'an has no emotion. Everyone has the right to do what they like, and there is no obligation to hold a certain ideal. Come and give to others. Some people will give up something to give. These people are different. Lu Chang'an walked along the road to Qingshan town. The changes of the times have not made all the traditions disappear, but they have become quieter. Today, there are still elderly people going to the market in Qingshan town, who have been farming on their own for decades. Crops or local products, tempeh, hot sauce, dried fish, dried beans, tea, and the like are sold on the streets. As long as the goods are good, the business is okay, and the quality of life of residents in the town is also improving. Trends you likes things produced by farmers. Lu Chang'an looked at the things of the fellow villagers and picked a jar of hot sauce that tasted good. Zheng Shitu's hometown was rich in hot sauce. It was used as a tribute in the Qing dynasty. Now the local brand of hot sauce sold online is suitable for catering to most people's tastes. The problem is that it has lost its local characteristics and is truly mellow and spicy without the salty taste of industrial products. Qingshan town is not a big town, with only 2 streets. It took more than 20 minutes to walk from start to finish. Lu Chang'an took a look at the hot sauce jar and recalled the time when he went to the market in earlier years. At that time, in a village people would set off in pairs before dawn, carrying loads from nearby villages, hoping to get a good place in the town market earlier. Later, bicycles became cheaper, and old men rode bicycles, carrying the old woman, and the local goods arrived, so we could start off later. Lu Chang'an came to Shiziping in Qingshan town. Here is the most delicious Qingshan rice noodle in the entire Qingshan town. In the eyes of all the people in Qingshan town, this is the most authentic Qingshan rice noodle. There are other stores all over the country that carry the banner of Qingshan rice noodle. None of them are as authentic as this one. Have a bowl of rice noodles and an omelette. Lu Chang'an sat down. The dozen or so tables in the 2 storefronts were almost full of people. People who came to the market early did not have time to have breakfast at home, so they took advantage of the opportunity. Come and taste this rice noodle that is not luxurious and not often eaten, but it is definitely memorable. This store has been around for decades, the owner has changed from a young man to an old man, and the waiter has become an aunt. Time makes people grow old, but the taste remains unchanged. The rice noodles were served. There were crushed red peppers falling on the white and chewy rice noodles. The red soup exuded the aroma from memories. The toppings of the meat slices were second to none. Lu Chang'an picked up a chopstick and ate it. He immediately felt satisfied with the aftertaste. I have eaten all kinds of noodle soups all over the country, but this one is the most fondly remembered. Lu Chang'an thinks that the red soup spicy rooster noodle he invented may be better, but now there is nothing to be picky about the noodle he eats. How many people in Qingshantown dreamed of opening a Qingshantown rice noodle shop when they were young, but it seems that no one has ever really been able to replicate this pure taste. Only when you return to your hometown and eat a bowl of the most authentic Qingshantown rice noodles can you enjoy it. Memories and tastes from my childhood. Lu Chang'an stood up, looked at several boys and girls who were fans of the nearby junior high school, walked out of the store, and then went to the direct sales store of Qingshan Machinery Factory. The owner of Qingshan Machinery Factory, whose surname is Qin, is originally from Qingshantown. He came back from Taiwan to set up a factory in the early years. Qingshan Machinery Factory is the Qin family's industry. In addition to selling various agricultural machinery sold to Southeast Asia, it also produces rice noodle machines. Lu Chang'an bought a large bag of rice noodles on the way, then went to the direct sales store to buy a rice noodle machine, and then continued to wander around Qingshantown with the hot sauce jar in one hand and the rice noodle machine in the other. At noon, Lu Chang'an wandered to the countryside below Qingshantown, and then to another town. In the afternoon, he went to the county seat, bought old rice at a rice factory, packed a big bag of rice, and then came to Zheng Shitu's former residence. I admired the summer scene of the lotus pond in front of the Duke's mansion, and looked at the ancient and historical books from the Qing dynasty. There is no doubt that among the several civil servants and generals in the modern history of southern Hunan, those with the surname Zhou and Wang were obviously better than those with the surname Zheng. One step higher. In the evening, Lu Chang'an slowly carried the jar of rice noodle hot sauce and the rice noodle machine, and walked towards Juncha with a large bag of rice. After all, after taking so many things, running so fast would be too eye-catching. Lu Chang'an only I could pick up the time and route to speed up, but it was still early dawn the next day when I got home. Lu Chang'an washed his feet and changed his shoes, and then read the instructions of the rice noodle machine carefully. Fortunately, the current rice noodle machine did not follow the trend of adding cameras, computer chips and AI systems, and the operation was very simple. The simpler, the more practical. Lu Chang'an didn't need a rice noodle machine today. He just rinsed the rice noodles he bought from Qingshantown and soaked them in cold water for a while. After doing all this, the sky only had some light in the extreme east. Lu Chang'an went to the vegetable market and bought a pullet and put it in the carriage. Fortunately, he had fed it the night before. Although there was a long time in between, the cough in his breath was a little hungry, but it didn't feel like it was raging. Lu Chang'an closed the carriage door and let the little hen die. He did not observe how the coffin robbed the little hen of its breath and caused it to die. Zhou Shuling was already preparing to set up the stall, and Lu Chang'an took out the remaining refrigerated spicy rooster and heated it up. Although it was not the freshest and most delicious, it could still be used as a topping for rice noodles. "This rice noodle of yours seems to be different from Juncha's," Zhou Shuling said a little surprised, "but it's not like she has never seen it before, but Juncha rarely uses this kind of rice noodle, which is about the same thickness as a mobile phone charging cable. This noodle is extra strong. You will sell your soy milk buns and dumplings later, and I will be responsible for brewing the noodle and selling it," Li Chang'an said. "Okay." Zhou Shuling smiled, and together with Lu Chang'an pushed the breakfast stall out of the gate of the community and set up tables and chairs. In fact, the old men and women in the community are not willing to eat in restaurants because they think it is unhygienic and nutritious, but they are more willing to save the trouble and buy breakfast from a restaurant when they pass by for a walk to buy food. Zhou Shuling also has a business in the community. People take care of them, and the houses in the streets next to them are relatively old. Most of them are rented out to young office workers, who are also Zhou Shuling's important customers. Lu Chang'an first made a bowl of noodles and ate it himself, and then made a bowl for Zhou Shuling. Zhou Shuling smiled and said that he didn't do any business, but he ate a lot. A bowl of rice noodles. An extremely beautiful young woman stood in front of the breakfast stall. Judging from the aura she exuded, she looked more like she should be sitting in the most luxurious restaurant, waiting for the meticulous service of the manager and chef, rather than in this cheap restaurant. Go to the stall early. 10 yuan, scan the QR code or cash, Lu Chang'an said without raising his head. Zhou Shuling was stunned for a moment, and then saw another woman who obviously looked like a secretary hurriedly took out her mobile phone and scanned 10 yuan. After reading this chapter, you can click to vote for a monthly ticket. Generally speaking, there is a guaranteed monthly ticket. Everyone votes for Xiahua. Tomorrow, Xiahua will hit the monthly vote list in the urban category and see how many places she can get. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 153. Zhongqing was dressed as usual, except for wearing light black stockings. Under the faint morning light, there was the smell of water vapor when the sprinkler truck passed by. Today, she had a high ponytail with a single hairpin in her hair. The bright silver metal hairband is tightly tied up, which is particularly smart and neat. It's just that there is some resentment and pity between the eyebrows, like a little daughter-in-law, which is not very similar to the past, either emotionally or physically, as if she has been tortured. Torture doesn't necessarily mean being forced or sad, it's just that the temperament will always be changed a little bit. 2 bowls. Zhongqing glanced at the woman next to him, a little annoyed, but his voice was not loud, and then scanned another $10. Add another bowl, Zhou Shuling said to Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an nodded, took an extra portion of rice noodles and scalded it in boiling water. The leaky basket shook slightly, but the soup water did not splash. The white rice water trembled in circles with ripples in the center, but his wrists were not. It doesn't move at all, it's all driven by 2 fingers. There are so many beautiful girl dolls. Old man Qian came back from running, walked to the stall and smelled it, then looked at the 2 beautiful women, stood there with his hands behind his back and looked at them blankly, and then said to Lu Chang'an, "Don't you give a discount to the beautiful woman. I don't care about you. You old man, do you want a bowl?" "The rice noodles made by Xiaolu are delicious," Zhou Shuling said. "Women must be more aggressive when doing business, which is more suitable." "I don't want it." Old Qian looked at the beauty again, turned around and trotted away. Lu Chang'an soaked the rice noodles, put them on the small table beside him, placed 2 pairs of disposable chopsticks, and said, "You want sauerkraut, chopped green onions, minced garlic, and you can add soy sauce yourself." At this time Zhou Dongdong came out of the house, carrying a small red skull bag, swinging his hands left and right, walking past the breakfast stall with a jumping step, grabbing a bun in one hand, and continuing to maintain the pace of his uncle from the People's Liberation Army. "I went to kindergarten, just a little bit next to it. Business is gradually getting better." Zhou Shuling is busier than Lu Chang'an. The new rice noodles sold are 2 yuan more expensive than what Zhou Shuling usually sells. It has not simply become a hot item. Many people choose it after seeing that it is 2 yuan more expensive. "Buy dumplings or wraps." Zhou Shuling took the time to say to Lu Chang'an, "I never thought that such a rich person would sit on a small bench and eat rice noodles." "Such a rich person still farts, it's just as smelly," Lu Chang'an said with a smile. "Keep your voice down." Zhou Shuling was a little embarrassed, because Lu Chang'an spoke in the same voice as usual, and the place where others were sitting was right next to her. Zhongqing obviously didn't hear it, but the woman accompanying her frowned slightly and put down the chopsticks in her hand. Zhongqing was eating rice noodles. She was born in Junxia, and slurping rice noodles in the streets and alleys was a common thing in her memory. Although she had been to countless high-end restaurants over the years, she did not have many common problems among rich and pretentious people. She sat down. I can eat noodles with peace of mind here, and I don't dislike the environment or taste. Of course I don't dislike the taste. Zhongqing thinks it is delicious. This is the spicy noodle suitable for the taste of Juncha people. It is completely different from those noodles that purely use spicy oil. Not a taste. The woman next to her is naturally a little different. The ancestors of the Zhu family are rich, and they pursue the concept that the family comes first, and political power is just an investment object. It has not declined in Taiwan in recent years. The daughter-in-law of the Zhu family is probably it's not something you'd find in an ordinary family. Mrs. Susan, the third girl in Mrs. Su's mouth, her origin is unknown. Some people say she is a relative of Mrs. Su. In the car accident that caused a sensation in Taiwan, the infant Zhu Huntang survived. Many people died, and Mr. Zuzan died on the spot. Is this noodle so delicious? The third girl said to Zhongqing next to her expressionlessly. It's pretty good. It's chewy and tastes good. Zhongqing was still eating the noodles with her head down, but she was eating them very delicately. It's impossible to eat such spicy noodles in big mouthfuls. It would take a long time to eat a big bowl. Seeing the beads of sweat on Zhongqing's forehead, the third girl waved her hand. A bottle of water. Ice or room temperature? Lu Chang'an asked. Normal temperature. Lu Chang'an took out a bottle of mineral water, placed it on the dining table, and took the payment code. Zhongqing scanned the code, opened the water and took a sip. Then he realized that the third girl didn't seem to have taken a bite of the noodles. He was wondering, it was you who came to eat the noodles, why didn't you take a bite? Even though I know you are here to see Lu Chang'an, this powder is indeed delicious. Lu Chang and the third girl stopped him. Lu Chang'an slowly turned around, a little bit of sunshine fell on his hair. His appearance was still in the shade of the tree, but it also smelled of sunshine, and his smile was gentle. Let's talk sometime. Lu Chang'an looked at the woman in front of him. Her eyebrows were as sharp as spears, and her appearance was delicate. She was sitting between the sun and the shade of the tree, with her hands placed squarely on her lower abdomen, her legs leaning together diagonally, and her knees tightly together, straight. Her calves are still as slender as a girl's. The biggest difference between pampered women and women in the market is probably the kind of cleanliness that is not stained by dust, or ethereal, or without fireworks, because they have too many people serving their lives. We are all unfamiliar with each other, so what are we talking about? Come and have 2 more bowls of noodles when you have time, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. Lu Chang'an. Zhongqing called Lu Chang'an in a low voice to remind him that this person was not the same person as Zhu Huntang. Okay, the third girl nodded and stood up, but her fingers pressed on Zhongqing's shoulders. You eat your powder slowly, I'll leave first. Zhongqing did not get up, but sat obediently and continued to eat noodles slowly. Lu Chang'an looked at the woman's back, swaying in various shapes, like a willow branch caressed by the wind under the moonlight, light and a bit mysterious and tempting because of the night. She came to see me, Lu Chang'an asked Zhongqing as he watched the Rolls-Royce leave. Probably because of the Zhu family, top-end RVs have appeared more and more frequently in this area recently. Yes, Zhongqing drank water and wiped his sweat. When you are with this woman, you are obviously much more cute and well-behaved than when you are with Zhu Huntang, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. Someone happened to want to get fans, so after saying that, he quickly went to make fans again. This one is for several people. This is how food stalls are. If someone eats here, more people will think that since there are people eating here, the taste may be good, and they will queue up. The busier the stall, the more people queue up, the more unoccupied stalls are, the more no one goes to them. Zhongqing also finished eating and was still sitting there. She knew that the third girl asked her to eat noodles here. Of course, she was not really taking care of her appetite. She just asked her to continue talking to Lu Chang'an. As for the third girl herself, she probably found out what, or didn't find anything, left a little disappointed. I think there is no problem in guaranteeing the minimum for 5 updates, and it is not difficult for 10 updates. Shunhuonuan is in public beta. I went to play it, and it feels okay. I haven't played it anymore, and I prioritize coding. Asking for a monthly ticket. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kuikan Ruxiahua. Chapter 154. Zhongqing placed the chopsticks neatly on the edge of the bowl, moved his legs diagonally and placed them on the other side. His black open-toed high heels stepped on the wet ground, and the beautiful woman was like a delicate flower bud in the morning. Do you know? In view of your love of talking and taking advantage, I once thought you were an unemployed vagrant living with middle-aged and elderly prostitutes. Zhongqing still wanted to fight back, and said angrily, "This is his cousin's classmate. How could a high school student be so comfortable teasing a mature professional woman, calling her cute and well-behaved? What's wrong with the prostitutes? Do you know Kinhu Abayan? I've met many of them, and they are all quite cute and cute." Lu Chang'an waved his hand. Killers and prostitutes are described as the oldest professions in many stories. If a mysterious figure or an important character has the identity of a killer or a prostitute, it is a way to style and enhance the charm of the character. I am not disgusted with a homeless person living with a middle-aged and elderly prostitute. You can also set him to be a person with complex emotions. Experience, vicissitudes in eyes, hidden behind powder, Zhou Shuling shouted. Lu Chang'an went to make powder. Zhongqing looked at the spicy soup in front of him, picked up the chicken left in the bowl with chopsticks and started eating, sighing secretly in his heart. He really had to be patient when talking to Lu Chang'an. How could he be so arrogant? Can you let her finish her words and complete the task? Seeing Lu Chang'an finish making the rice noodles and placing them on the table next to him, Zhongqing called out to Lu Chang'an. If you have something to say, just say it. I'm busy. Lu Chang'an reminded Zhongqing not to change the subject anymore. Zhongqing did not disagree with him because he deliberately used well-behaved and cute when describing prostitutes. He looked at Lu Chang'an seriously and said, "The one just now is the third lady's mother, the third wife of the Zhu family. She's really young, but she doesn't look like a mother and a daughter." Lu Chang'an nodded, saying that out of respect for the beautiful girl's appearance, he had observed her and knew what she looked like. Zhongqing's eyes were a little complicated. It wasn't that he had complicated feelings for Lu Chang'an, but he just found this person difficult to understand. At first, he thought he was just a famous farmer. After checking, he found out that he was a famous student from a top high school, and then he turned out to be, it has something to do with the Qin family. He was moving bricks at the construction site and was always available for work. He didn't take Miss Takezan seriously at all and kicked her into the swimming pool. He roasted centipedes at the class reunion, sacrificed himself to save others in the lake, and did not care about the blackmail from the people he rescued. He has gained the attention of people with great power, wealth, and influence, but he is here skillfully selling instant noodles. How could there be such a person who does whatever he wants, is not afraid of things that most people would be afraid of, and does not desire things that most people would pursue? He seems to be living unruly in this ordinary world, but also seems to be enjoying himself in his own world. The third wife means that since the Su family and the Ye family have a history of marriage, it is better to let the younger generation renew their relationship now. The marriage that was not completed back then can be completed now. Zhongqing did not say anything on these matters. Even though she thought it was ridiculous, she still told Lu Chang'an the truth. Of course, the third wife and the third young lady are different. Zhongqing can understand the third lady's orders by himself, but she can just carry out the third wife's matters. My surname is Lu. Lu Chang'an shook his head. You should go find Ye Chinayu. My surname is Lu means that even though I have feelings for people of my generation named Ye, our fate has been exhausted. We can't find it, but you and the third lady are getting engaged. Senior Ye should come out and show his face. He can't ignore such a big event, right? Zhongqing felt helpless, thinking that he had deliberately tried to avoid Zhu Huntang and Zhu Huntang. What happened to Lu Chang'an was also in response to the third wife's request. Who knew that it would now become the third wife's request? First, I have a girlfriend. Second, I don't like Zhu Huntang. Third, this third wife takes herself too seriously. Please come back. After Lu Chang'an finished speaking, he ignored Zhong Qing and walked back to make rice noodles. This day's business was mainly concentrated in the morning. With so much nonsense, how much would it delay him from selling rice noodles? Zhong Qing stood up. She had no choice, and she didn't even try to convince Lu Chang'an, because she already knew that Lu Chang'an was beyond her ability to deal with. He was like a stone in a pit, hard and smelly. Business is good. I feel like there will be repeat customers tomorrow, Lu Chang'an said to Zhou Shuling. Zhou Shuling was not very worried about whether the fan-selling business was going well or not. She asked with concern, "They are here to see you. Please tell me something. I see that you are not very patient. The prerequisite for them to talk things over is that they contact me first and make an appointment to see if I'm willing, rather than driving over in a luxury car and acting as if they want to do whatever they want. This is not called talking it over, it's rubbing one's nose in the face. They are pretending to be 13." Lu Chang'an's smile was still very gentle. "I have already given them a lot of face. According to my violent temper 2000 years ago, I will throw them into the soup. Let's see what you can do. Take Dong Dong and fly twice in the sky." "I'm worried that you won't make it to the ground," Zhou Shuling laughed, but Lu Chang'an was right. Some rich people take themselves too seriously. It's a matter of fact, as if they propose something, others should agree to it. "Do you know what happened when humans first conquered Mount Everest?" Lu Chang'an asked. "Ah. I floated over there and couldn't stop. Then I floated all the way to the moon and saw Chang'e. I had no choice but to come back. I had to wait until the satellite was invented and connected to Wi-Fi, and then I reconnected with the Earth. Came back from the Apollo." Lu Chang'an sighed a little. "In a flash, I haven't seen my Chang'e again for a long time." Zhou Shuling was so happy that she gave someone else's 100 yuan bill as 10 yuan. Fortunately, she basically scanned the QR code to pay now. Otherwise, she would really worry about setting up a stall with Lu Chang'an, and she would always change the wrong money. "Hey, business is good, look at this happy little face." Lu Chang'an was joking with Zhou Shuling. After the busiest time in the morning, the business had calmed down, and there was no one to talk to. At this time, a man in his 30s came over and looked at Zhou Shuling and Lu Chang'an coldly. "Go Shanghai, what are you doing here?" Zhou Shuling's expression changed. This man was the man who asked Zhou Shuling to pay off her debt 2 days ago and then marry him. "Do you want to eat fans?" Lu Chang'an asked. Go Shanghai looked at Lu Chang'an. He looked quite young, but there was nothing childish in his expression. He must be a little younger than Zhou Shuling. It was unclear whether he was Zhou Shuling's man or a helper. Go Shanghai nodded casually. "Come on, one bowl. Do you have an omelette? Add an egg." "There are no fried eggs, only tea eggs. Do you want them?" 1, 2, 2. Lu Chang'an made a fan of it and pointed to the payment code, a total of 14 yuan. "Are you asking me for money?" Go Shanghai laughed and said to Zhou Shuling, "Xiaoling, tell him who I am. I want to create my own miracles and breakthroughs. I'm really immortal." Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 155. Zhou Shuling was a little confused. Go Shanghai. Lu Chang'an still pointed at the payment code. Go Shanghai felt a little embarrassed and coughed lightly. "I mean, my identity. Even if you are the king of the county, you still have to pay when you come to my place to eat rice." Lu Chang'an wanted to do this business and ask sincerely, "Can you please pay quickly? What's your status? I haven't seen you for 2 days and you are an official." Zhou Shuling sneered, Director Chen from the sub-district office comes to my place for breakfast, and there is no time when he doesn't pay. I'm your boyfriend. Look at her, she's too embarrassed to say it. Go Shanhai said to Lu Chang'an with a little pride. You don't know, do you? Zhou Shuling's expression changed. Go Shanhai, don't talk nonsense, I have nothing to do with you. Didn't I tell you that after you pay off the debt, we will get married? After all, we are talking about boyfriend and girlfriend, so we are considered to be married. Go Shanhai pointed at his fans with a smile. Let's go out, let's go out. Well, if I have some rice noodles, why should I pay for it? Let the rice noodles be cooked. Go Shanhai, that's what you said. I don't agree. Zhou Shuling blushed with anger. How could there be such a shameless person? Look at you, look at you. Go Shanhai's expression changed slightly. At this point, I'm already very sincere. I don't care if you bring a wasteful person with you, but you still have to be so pretentious. Let me tell you, if you keep showing off, I won't give you this chance. Your aunt said so many good things to you that I reluctantly agreed. Zhou Shuling's fingers trembled with anger, and acquaintances from the community gathered around. They didn't know what happened for a while, and watching from the side made Zhou Shuling feel even more embarrassed. Wait, Go Shanhai was about to continue talking when Lu Chang'an walked out from behind the breakfast stall. What? Who do you think is a freeloader? Go Shanhai was stunned for a moment, then remembered that he had mentioned this in passing, and looked at Lu Chang'an inexplicably. That's what I said, what do you think? Isn't she just a freeloader? Then do you know that I like two girls? One is An Nuan, who is my girlfriend. The other is Zhou Dongdong, who is what you call a freeloader. Lu Chang'an rolled up his sleeves. You go to the kindergarten and kneel down and call Zhou Dongdong your grandma, and I will reluctantly forgive you. Are you crazy? Go Shanhai was surprised and angry. Where did you come from? Lu Chang'an raised his hand and grabbed Go Shanhai's forehead, then dragged him towards the kindergarten. Ah, you, Xiaoling, help. Go Shanhai struggled, feeling like a drunken shrimp caught in chopsticks. No matter how much he jumped, he was unable to break free, and his head was grabbed by pliers-like hands. Zhou Shuling didn't care to leave it early, casually asked an acquaintance to take a look, and quickly followed. Chang'an, forget it, just let him go. Of course Zhou Shuling didn't care about Go Shanhai, but she was afraid that Lu Chang'an would get into trouble. Sometimes Lu Chang'an likes to chat, but sometimes he doesn't even say a word of nonsense. He can't even ask you to kneel down and call grandma. Doesn't that mean he doesn't give Lu Chang'an face? Seeing that Lu Chang'an refused to listen, Zhou Shuling trotted and grabbed Lu Chang'an's sleeve. Chang'an, forget it, I'm used to it. Lu Chang'an stopped and Go Shanhai breathed a sigh of relief and collapsed on the ground, holding his hands on the ground because his head was still in Lu Chang'an's hand. You are used to it, do you want Zhou Dongdong to get used to it too? Lu Chang'an looked at Zhou Shuling calmly. I don't dislike Zhou Dongdong for being stupid and good at eating. What right do others have to say that she is a drag? Zhou Shuling's heart suddenly softened, like a dam full of cracks being torn apart. She collapsed immediately, her body trembled, and she leaned against the wall. As a mother, she had endured too much, but who wants her daughter to be despised? Lu Chang'an dragged Go Shanhai to the wall of the kindergarten. He walked softly and pinched Go Shanhai's mouth. What are you howling for? Don't disturb the healthy and happy growth of the flowers of the motherland. Go Shanhai felt that the flesh of his cheeks was pressing against the bones and hurt. He was extremely annoyed. Why did he come to Zhou Shuling? Zhou Shuling bought a house. As long as she gets married and she makes money to pay off debts, why not? Her daughter doesn't want him to raise her, and Zhou Shuling is pretty good looking and has a good figure, so he doesn't dislike her for getting divorced and makes do with it. Kneel down and kowtow, call grandma, don't speak too loudly, just let it come to your mind, no need for others to see it. Lu Chang'an made arrangements. What the hell is this? Go Shanhai was covered in dust, in a miserable state, and his muscles were sore. At this time, he did not dare to argue with a madman. He knelt down and kowtowed in great humiliation, and called grandma several times. Lu Chang'an was a little dissatisfied that his voice was too soft, but thinking that the key was his intention to be a grandson, he nodded, beat Go Shanhai again, and left humming a song from the kindergarten radio. When Lu Chang'an returned to the breakfast stall, two female students happened to come over. They stopped in front of the breakfast stall and looked at Lu Chang'an. A girl took out her mobile phone, looked at it, and then looked at Lu Chang'an for confirmation. Are you Lu Chang'an? The girl looked forward to it excitedly. Are you a fan? If so, I am. Lu Chang'an nodded. Eat, 2 bowls. Lu Chang'an pointed to the table next to him, and the two girls sat there, still looking at Lu Chang'an excitedly and making many small movements. You didn't do anything to Go Shanhai, did you? Zhou Shuling had come back and her mood had recovered a bit. Meeting someone like Go Shanhai really made Zhou Shuling never want to go on a blind date again. Just beat him up casually. There is no way. There are too many fools like this in the world. We can't kill them all, Lu Chang'an said regretfully. He is now a very reasonable person who abides by the rule of law and speaks well. There really are all kinds of people. Zhou Shuling shook her head helplessly. I've only seen people like this in novels before. Artistic creation comes from life, but is higher than life. I really don't know who is so embarrassed to say this. It's really a shame for yourself. The artist himself is in life. How can it be higher than life? Life is always better than novels, even more exciting. If you just look at the news, you will know that the real idiots in this world far exceed the creations of novelists. However, when novelists create some such mentally retarded people, there are always people shouting, how can such mentally retarded people exist? I have never met anything like that. I think you should write a novel. You are really good at talking. Zhou Shuling laughed. When she met such a landlord and neighbor, Zhou Shuling was really grateful that her life was still warm. Writing novels is not interesting, but among many stories, I am an unknown legend, Lu Chang'an said with a smile. Okay, you are the best. Zhou Shuling was very willing to praise Lu Chang'an. Lu Chang'an nodded matter-of-factly, and then delivered the soaked powder to the two girls' tables. Can we take a photo together? A girl looked at Lu Chang'an expectantly. Standard group photo, one fist apart, Lu Chang'an agreed. The two girls took a group photo upright according to Lu Chang'an's request. They also thanked Lu Chang'an and ate the spicy red soup, spicy rooster noodles, with their tongues sticking out excitedly. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 156. After selling fans all morning, the income was good, which was similar to Lu Chang'an's expectation, but I felt that there would be repeat customers tomorrow, which was a good start. Zhou Shuling was ready to close the stall in the afternoon. Of course, Lu Chang'an would not insist on selling more rice noodles. In fact, after noon, there were fewer people coming out to eat rice noodles. The rice noodles sold at noon were more than in the morning. For many people, a portion of noodles costing 10 yuan in the morning is not as cost-effective as a portion at lunch. For breakfast, I just have a cup of soy milk, a dumpling or burrito that costs 3 to 5 yuan, and a rice noodle dish that costs 10 yuan for lunch is considered a meal. Lu Chang'an did not go home directly, but went to the stone market. There were raw stones, stone building materials, decorative sculptures, etc. all over the world. It took him a long time to find a two-sided stone mill. If you want it, I'll send it to you, the store owner said with a smile. No one wants this thing for 10 years. It was carved out by my old man who had no time to do anything. Of course Lu Chang'an wanted it. The store owner found a small truck and arranged to send it there. Lu Chang'an originally wanted to carry it back by himself, but carrying it was too eye-catching, so he decided not to save money that he shouldn't have. He originally thought that if he didn't deliver the goods, the store owner should give him at least 20 yuan cheaper. The stone mill was promoted during the Eastern Han Dynasty. From a modern perspective, this thing is naturally ancient and primitive, and the kinetic energy conversion efficiency is very low. However, at that time, it promoted people's food diversification, and the grains ground by the stone mill can make more diverse foods, such as soy milk, a drink that was born only after the invention and promotion of stone mills. After Lu Chang'an returned home, he took 2 benches to set up a stone mill and placed a large basin underneath. While pouring soaked old rice into the stone mill, he pushed the stone mill to grind the powder. Using old rice is not to save costs, but the rice noodles made from old rice have a special texture. As the saying goes, money can make ghosts work hard. Lu Chang'an always feels that he is much more powerful than ghosts, but he still has to work hard to make money, but this is an extremely easy thing for him. If you make money, you can buy a pullet. If you buy the pullet, you can continue to feed the little girl of the Shangguan family. The coffin will not draw life and blood like crazy, and the world will be much more peaceful. Lu Chang'an was pushing and grinding, and he saw a little Ultraman coming back from the kindergarten with a skull bag on his back, his hands swaying left and right, and walking home like an uncle from the People's Liberation Army. This little Ultraman is of course Zhou Dongdong. She wears an Ultraman mask that just barely hides her face inside. Lu Chang'an no longer saw her walking with her arms spinning like a small airplane. There was no doubt that this was the injured state after she received a heavy blow during the airplane dance. Brother Chang'an, is this a stone wheel? Zhou Dongdong saw something like a stone mill for the first time. After all, he was just a child and had little knowledge. Even if he knew that aliens like Ultraman existed in the world, but I don't know the stone mill. No, this is something to bully stupid children, Lu Chang'an said. Zhou Dongdong was shocked. Although he firmly believed that he was a clever and brave child, he suddenly felt the horror of this strange thing in front of him. How do you bully me? After Zhou Dongdong finished speaking, he shook his head quickly and asked warily, no, how do you bully other stupid children? Because the stupid child can't read or study, she has to do hard work. Let her grind the big bag of rice into powder before she can eat. Zhou Dongdong hurriedly carried his skull bag and went home to study. Lu Chang'an spent the whole afternoon grinding rice noodles, but he didn't see Zhou Dongdong coming downstairs at night. Zhou Shuling said that Zhou Dongdong had been reading picture books at home. Lu Chang'an received a message in the evening. It was a video of Lu Chang'an singing Ghost Confused that day, and it was also accompanied by a text message. Uncle, look at how good Lu Chang'an is at flirting with girls. His skills must have been honed on countless girls. That's okay. As male animals, they are naturally prepared to capture females for reproduction. Only in this way can they get more opportunities to inherit genes. It can be said that the better a man is at flirting with girls, the better he is genetically speaking. Excellent performance, it's not his fault. Many behaviors between men and women are actually genetically determined. Why do you always speak for Lu Chang'an? You should be on my side. Then why do you always say something wrong with your boyfriend and ask me to stand on your side and criticize your boyfriend together? Do you want to find a reason to kick him and then be with me? No. Even if I kick him, I won't be with you. You are an uncle, you can't molest a little girl like this. After all, there is an age gap between us. As friends, there is actually a generation gap. For example, our views on your boyfriend are completely different. It's not a generation gap, it's just different positions and perspectives. I think your mother and I can have a little chat. Maybe, do you want me to give you my mother's WeChat ID? No, We are not familiar with each other. We middle-aged people rarely add strangers to WeChat, strangers who have no social relationships. Such exchanges on WeChat often have the meaning of introduction, otherwise middle-aged people are very realistic. And don't have that much time and energy to chat with strangers. How can you think that? I took the initiative to send my mother's WeChat message, but you don't want it. Don't want. Goodbye. Lu Chang'an chatted to death and went to put a little hen he bought this afternoon into the coffin. The money he made from selling the chicken powder can help the little girl Shangguan eat more. Maybe she can wake up early. Lu Chang'an left the carriage and went outside the room of the young man who was monitoring him. He knocked on the door, but there was no sound. After listening carefully, there was indeed no sound. It seemed that he had left. Lu Chang'an felt a little regretful, but he didn't care too much. After all, he really wanted to know the background of the person who was spying on him. He didn't have to just beat him up and leave that day. It was okay to ask a few more questions. Probably like Li Hongfang, they also came from some people who were instructed by Mrs. Karnstad. If you put it this way, these people are really not very interested in this coffin. Fortunately, Qin Peng made the original preparations. It's not bad, it's an armored vehicle, and with such a heavy thing, it's not an easy thing to steal this thing in an old neighborhood with many people, narrow roads, and complicated street traffic. This should be the reason why those people did not act rashly and violently. After all, the surveillance cameras all over the street cannot solve the problem by escaping in a car like in the movie. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 157. Lu Chang'an opened the door with a punch. This is a typical old-fashioned residential building with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room plus a small balcony and a toilet. The living room is also used as a dining room. Now there are only 2 beds and a thick CRT color TV in the house. This thing is considered an antique, but luckily it's not a black and white TV. The young man who was monitoring him was able to endure loneliness. The bed in his room was by the window. If he opened the window a little, he could use a telescope to monitor Lu Chang'an. There were some scattered remnants of domestic garbage in the room. For criminal investigation, these domestic garbage are important items that can be used to find clues, but Lu Chang'an didn't care, just looked at it and left. After wandering around the community, they found nothing else. It seemed that even if there were multiple surveillance points, they were evacuated as the young man was exposed. They were not sure whether Lu Chang'an had discovered more surveillance points. Lu Chang'an thought for a while and decided to reason with people first. After all, he was a reasonable person, so he went home, took ink and a pen, and wrote the words "the place where the god of death retreats" on the telephone pole at the entrance of the community. He has already given a warning. If others don't see this line, or don't understand the meaning of these 5 words, and then break into play, Lu Chang'an can't control what will happen to them. Only those who live longer will kill more people. Only immortals who have harvested their lives are qualified to be called the god of death, otherwise they are just executioners. Lu Chang'an is very satisfied that he has improved his realm and style. In fact, he often thinks about whether he belongs to the category of immortal, but considering that he can neither fly nor control the wind and rain, it would be too much to be aloof and not eat the fireworks of the world. It's boring, but I finally decided that I was alone. However, it is also very interesting to accidentally name himself a god of death. He doesn't care whether he is qualified to be a god of death, because no one is qualified to say that he is not qualified anyway. Lu Chang'an raised his head and glanced at the Bailong Center, which was like a staircase to heaven. He knew that he was far away from the legendary god, but he could still improve his strength. After jumping down from the 452-meter Bailong Center once, he would not be able to do it next time. If so, the effect will not be so good. Your goal should be raised to a tall building above 600 meters. There are only a handful of tall buildings of this height in the world, let alone in China. In fact, it doesn't necessarily have to be a high-rise building. The height of many cliffs and cliffs in Jedi is higher than this height. He won't really focus on jumping off the building to improve. The last time he chose Bailong Center, it was mainly because it was close and convenient. In fact, it is possible to choose to ram into the high-speed train, but that would be too dangerous for others and is no different from an act of terrorism. Lu Chang'an is not willing to do such a thing in this relatively peaceful era. One very strange thing is that since my genes have been passed on to immortality, why can I still evolve and improve my body functions? According to scientific concepts, if a gene has been passed on to immortality, it will cause the inheritor to lose the ability to reproduce, because this ability is no longer necessary. So logically speaking, its own evolution should also stop. Why can it still improve? This is a contradiction, and it is also a mystery that Professor Lu has studied but found nothing. Lu Chang'an looked at his handwriting and was lost in thought for a while, then went back to put away the ink and brush. Just as he was about to play cards, Zhu Huntang sent a message asking Lu Chang'an to read a book. Generally speaking, when someone sends a message asking Lu Chang'an to meet, or like the third wife, asking for a time to meet, Lu Chang'an will ignore it. However, Zhu Huntang obviously has more experience and asks Lu Chang'an to read a book. Lu Chang'an will not be indifferent to if you want to see me, just come by yourself, he will go happily. Lu Chang'an went happily. The person who received Lu Chang'an downstairs was Zhongqing, which surprised Lu Chang'an, so he asked, I have seen Zhu Huntang many times recently, but you have not accompanied Zhu Huntang. Don't you need to accompany the third wife today? Zhongqing couldn't help but glance at Lu Chang'an and found that he seemed to have no other metaphorical meaning and his expression was as usual. Then he felt relieved and said, the third wife is not in a good mood today and wants to stay by herself for a while. Does the third wife usually live with Zhu Huntang? Lu Chang'an asked casually. How can you? The place here is too small to live in. Zhongqing shook his head. Lu Chang'an did not ask any more questions and came to Zhu Huntang's library, but Zhu Huntang was not in the library. Zhongqing said, there is a waning moon hanging in the clouds tonight. The night is still good. The third lady has prepared a book party with you upstairs. The third wife has talked about the marriage, and Zhongqing's attitude has also changed a bit. Normally she would have some thoughts and suggestions about this ambiguous environment where men and women meet alone, but naturally not now. Lu Chang'an did not chew too much, as monkeys would go into the cornfield and plunder the corns everywhere. Lu Chang'an saw a few books of interest at the entrance of the library, and did not go to see if there were any more interesting books, so he took them. After these few books, I went upstairs to find Zhu Huntang. He knew very well that Zhu Huntang had no interest in reading. She just found this reason that he would not object to ask him to meet. She could go find him, and she would not feel that she had lost her status by going down to earth. She must ask him to meet here. Naturally, this was what girls were accustomed to, and they wanted to talk somewhere where there was a story. Just like some girls will look for a familiar place to express their love, giving her more security and courage, some boys will look for the place where they confessed for the first time to let her recall how moved they were in the first place. In fact, they are all useless ideas and very self-centered. Whether they succeed or not has nothing to do with them. Of course Zhu Huntang didn't come to Lu Chang'an to express her feelings, her expression was even a little angry. Just like the superstition on the magic stick, the look on the ants' faces when they were told after losing their virginity that the magic stick had no power at all. I come from the mortal world, and I don't envy the gods in heaven. I just talk about it when I have something to say. Lu Chang'an sat cross-legged. No matter how angry Zhu Huntang was, she was still ready for the book party. She had a fruit plate, snacks, tea table, drinks, poetry, books, music, movies, and articles. Quan, probably after giving orders, Someone prepared the scene according to the scene of a small gathering of ladies. Lu Chang'an, Qin Yanan said you were lying to me. You said you knew Qin Shiwang, but that was a text message scam, Zhu Huntang said straight to the point. Didn't you Taiwanese invent that meme? We here call you Scam Island because of it, Lu Chang'an said calmly. That's not the point. The guarantee is completed and I am continuing to code. Please vote for me. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 158. Except for the time he was discovered by Zhu Huntang, Lu Chang'an has been to Beilong Center many times, and sitting here actually feels familiar and accustomed. Under such a feeling, people will always relax. Lu Chang'an sat cross-legged, put down the book in his hand, picked up a peach and started to nibble on it. Peach is a fruit that is so beautiful. It tastes green and astringent, and tastes mature when it is ripe. The soft feeling can make people feel great anticipation with just a pinch. Maybe it's sweet, ripe, red, and juicy. Men all love to eat peaches. Eat some snacks. Try this pan-fried bun. It sells for 88 yuan in the hotel downstairs. It's really delicious. Zhu Huntang quickly came over to recommend it. It's been poisoned. Don't eat it, Lu Chang'an refused without hesitation. Although he was immune to all poisons, why did he still eat it when he knew there was a problem? It's not like fresh delicacies that I haven't eaten or tasted before. Forget it if you don't eat it. I'm too lazy to poison you. What if I really poison you to death? Qin Yanan will still make trouble for me. Zhu Huntang is not so stupid, although this fried bun is indeed a little bit small. Small problem. It's not poisonous, it's just something weird, Lu Chang'an said with certainty. A woman named Su Mei did this many years ago. You're still pretending. You big liar, Zhu Huntang was very angry. What? Lu Chang'an was puzzled. You were the one who insisted that I admit that I am immortal and that I have superpowers. Now you are the one who calls me a liar. How on earth are you going to let me play house with you? Playing house? You really lied to me. Zhu Huntang was very angry. Think whatever you want, Lu Chang'an continued to nibble on the peach, which seemed to be fine. I want to settle a score with you. Zhu Huntang was very angry. Lu Chang'an nodded. The peach was so delicious, tender and sweet. When he bit it lightly, the juice bloomed with a charming aroma between his lips and teeth. First of all, tell me how you got to this building that time. Why are you not seen in all the surveillance cameras? There are neither elevators nor stairwells. Don't tell me that you climbed up from the outer wall. Then it is even more impossible not to be discovered. Zhu Huntang still did not completely lose his attempt to rationally analyze the doubts to prove that Lu Chang'an was indeed suspicious and that he was not a fool who was deceived. Building number 2 of Beilong Center. Lu Chang'an pointed to the nearby shorter building. I climbed up that building first, then used the roof to accelerate and help, and jumped with all my strength. We arrived at the rooftop of building 1. Why didn't you say you flew up here? Zhu Huntang felt doubtful, but he immediately suppressed his naive feeling. He actually half believed him in such a thing. I'm really crazy. But Zhu Huntang still couldn't help but look at building number 2. If he had superpowers, would it really be possible to jump here like this? I just fell down and walked out from behind the glass house. I saw you noticed me. I felt a little embarrassed, so I randomly found a topic to chat with you. Lu Chang'an sighed softly. I guess you want to suicide, but according to the principle of reverse effect, it is useless for you to tell the suicidal person about suicide, and it is useless to tell her about how wonderful life is. You have to talk to her about immortality in order to arouse her rebellious psychology and change of interest. Because only people who commit suicide will not have the rationality of ordinary people and will have feelings about the topic of immortality. Coupled with my demonstration jump, you will feel the fear of suicide in advance, and of course you will not want to commit suicide again. Really, the more she talked about it, the more it seemed like this. Zhu Huntang hesitated. She found that in her doubtful mood, the weight of general belief quietly increased. Just kidding. Zhu Huntang casually threw a pan-fried bun at Lu Chang'an, and he was so angry. Lu Chang'an conveniently grabbed the fried buns and put them down. You don't have to eat the food. It would be bad if you throw it away. He sneered. Generally, people who like to chew will take a bite when you throw it away carelessly. Just like some assassins like to lick their own blades and say that the poison I have tempered has no cure, I am not that stupid. It is very powerful to use it inadvertently like you, but it is a pity. Lu Chang'an, Zhu Huntang shouted, interrupting his nonsense. She didn't think so much in the first place. She just wanted Lu Chang'an to jump off the building and become a real scumbag. That would be the most perfect thing for him. State. Lu Chang'an stopped talking and continued to nibble on the peach. He opened the book and started reading. Since it was a book club, of course he wanted to read and talk about books. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an, who changed his temperament and feelings perfectly and naturally as soon as he opened the book. For a moment, he only felt helpless and complicated emotions. This person really can't deal with it on his own. Zhu Huntang decided not to think about how he did what he did that night, because the magician would never reveal his magic secrets even to death. Anyway, don't think about things like Lu Chang'an's immortality and superpowers. The most annoying thing is that he actually called him grandpa for so long. Lu Chang'an, forget about other things. There is a serious issue now. We must have a serious talk. Zhu Huntang also sat down cross-legged opposite Lu Chang'an. This is not a very ladylike sitting posture. Zhu Huntang is wearing white leggings, with his palms pressing the hem of the skirt. He doesn't care too much about the ladylike sitting posture or the issue of exposure. This is not the time for elegance. You said it. Lu Chang'an began to eat the second peach and wrapped the peach core of the first peach in a paper towel. Are you afraid of leaving saliva on the peach core? Zhu Huntang blurted out instinctively. Peaches are delicious. I'll see if I can plant a peach tree like this when I go back. With today's fruit trees, you can't just take a seed and grow it with exactly the same taste. Zhu Huntang knows this common sense. Lu Chang'an didn't care. He planted it first and then talked about it. If it doesn't come out, it won't come out. Who cares? Don't interrupt. Zhu Huntang scratched his hair. How could he always have brain problems when he was with Lu Chang'an? Lu Chang'an didn't interrupt in the first place, and didn't care that she blamed him. My mother plans to get me engaged to you. Zhu Huntang finally got to the point. Speaking of which, this is the most critical issue. It involves the important life event of a fairy marrying into the mortal world. Of course, it is better than the messy immortality, superpowers, and the like. It's more important. Zhu Huntang did not expect that Qin Yinan's prophecy would come true. When the old lady of the Zhu family knew that such a Lu Chang'an existed, she would not hesitate to compete with Ye Sijin again. When Su Mei couldn't marry Ye Chenyu, it was not because of Ye Sijin. Making trouble? Now Ye Sijin's great-granddaughter wants to marry Lu Chang'an, but there's no way. Why are you worrying about this matter? Lu Chang'an looked cold and calm. Only the person I choose can marry me. How can you stand a chance? Zhu Huntang was stunned for a moment. Of course it would be nice to hear his categorical rejection, but why was he so unhappy? Zhu Huntang originally thought that he was narcissistic enough. I know that spreading out the short story about Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang on the roof will definitely dissuade some readers at the beginning, but I still did it. I think many readers are used to reading manual-style narratives. But I really don't like to write my novels as instructions. Every sentence is a standard way of telling you what to do. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. I'm really immortal. Author, Chu Lian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 159. Zhu Huntang has a correct self-understanding of herself. As a fairy, it is normal to have a high opinion of herself. Lu Chang'an only knows stunts and magic. I don't have a chance. Zhu Huntang stretched out his thin fingers and pointed proudly towards the dimly lit city. Men all over the world want me to be their exclusive little fairy. Only mortals can have wild fantasies about fairies. Today I chose a new name for myself, the God of Death. Lu Chang'an said without raising his head. The God of Death is not interested in fairies. He just wants to hold the hand of a beautiful girl and kill people like hemp. I am also a beautiful girl. Zhu Huntang has never been modest about this kind of thing. She feels that modesty is a bad moral character. It is basically the same as lying and is a waste of everyone's efforts and saliva. Your appearance is just mediocre, far behind An Nuan and Qin Yanan, and not as good looking as your mother. But you are more pleasing to the eye than your mother, and you are barely the same as Zhongqing. That's not right, Zhongqing. There is something pitiful, sad, and pretending to be stubborn about you, mixed with the ability and self-discipline of a professional woman. To men, you are more attractive than you. Lu Chang'an pointed to the vase beside him. Here, you, and that it's similar to growing a vase. I guess it's expensive, but it's of no use. Everyone is amazed and forgets it. No one really wants to pay a price to get it. Even if someone spends tens of millions to buy it, the idea behind it may be just money laundering. Zhu Huntang looked at Lu Chang'an in disbelief. This is the first time someone has commented on her like this, but his metaphor seems to make some sense. Indeed, many people will look at her like a vase. Indeed, many people want to marry her. Of course, they are interested in the person behind her. Wealth, status, and influence. Although most of his comments were nonsense, some of them resonated with people after all. Zhu Huntang became angry and said, "You are talking nonsense. I am the best looking one." Lu Chang'an nodded. What she thought was her business, and he would not support or object to it. What he thought was his business, and he did not need support or objection. Look carefully, look at me. Zhu Huntang stretched out his hands to pull Lu Chang'an's face, asking him to raise his head and take a serious look at himself. This man is simply blind. Lu Chang'an opened her hand and raised his head to look at Zhu Huntang. Zhu Huntang retracted his hands and put them in front of him, and quickly restrained his fierce expression. Girls look best in a calm and gentle mood. For example, the Mona Lisa smile that everyone is looking for is such an expression. Although Zhu Huntang didn't see what was so beautiful about Mona Lisa. Lu Chang'an's eyes narrowed slightly and became a little narrow, and he looked at Zhu Huntang quietly. Zhu Huntang maintained his posture, his eyes moved in his eye sockets, and slowly stopped, meeting his eyes, which were dark and deep. This man has a deep and stable temperament, especially the clear lines of eyebrows, eyes, and lips. There is no common roughness or weakness, it is just right. Zhu Huntang's cheeks were slightly red, and he quickly looked away, turning his head and scratching his neck. How about it, am I particularly good looking? Lu Chang'an still pointed at the vase. He was not blind, so did he need to look more? Looking around, I saw that there were no flowers growing on her face just now, so there was nothing better looking. Zhu Huntang yelled and rushed over angrily. She didn't know what she wanted to do, but she had to bite her anyway. Lu Chang'an stretched out his hand and pressed her face, pushing Zhu Huntang aside. Zhu Huntang rolled around and got up. Lu Chang'an said, "I will throw you into the swimming pool later." Zhu Huntang looked angrily at Lu Chang'an, who had turned his head away and continued reading. He couldn't help but wonder, how can he deal with this guy? Actually, you don't need to care about my opinion. First, I can't possibly like you. Second, even if you are really good looking, you are just a piece of shit in my eyes. Third, even if I think you are good looking, what's the point? As you said, there are people all over the world who will treat you as a fairy. One more is not more, and one less is not enough. Lu Chang'an persuaded with great consideration and concern, if you really want to prove yourself, go for plastic surgery. You look like an Nuan or Qinyanan, I'm always embarrassed to say you're not good looking. Lu Chang'an. You are so annoying, how could an Nuan like you? Zhu Huntang was about to explode with anger. He pressed his chest involuntarily, and understood the meaning of Qinyanan's always doing this, because it really felt too intense. The ups and downs of her body will break free from the constraints of underwear and buttons, even though she doesn't have the strength yet. Isn't this a very simple truth? Lu Chang'an looked at Zhu Huntang in surprise. You don't understand this? Because in front of the people I like, of course I am humorous, gentle, and considerate, knowledgeable, considerate, and sweet. Do your best, be full of pampering, and be charming. Can I do the same to you? Goodbye. Zhu Huntang could no longer bear Lu Chang'an, so he stood up and walked downstairs. Lu Chang'an saw that it was still early, and some fruits would taste bad if left uneaten after being washed. He couldn't bear to waste them, so he finished the fruits while reading a book before leaving. Unexpectedly, Zhu Huntang went somewhere, but Zhongqing was waiting downstairs, which fully demonstrated the extremely high professionalism of an assistant, even though all she needed to do was press the elevator button for Lu Chang'an and then send him downstairs. Just watched his back disappear and then turned back upstairs. It was already late at night. Diagonally across from Bailong Center was Junche's once most prosperous commercial street. At the street entrance stood a large statue of a revolutionary sage. Some of the fences that blocked the road were removed at night. Lu Chang'an walked over easily and saw many electric motorcycle drivers soliciting customers. There was also a traditional bar street directly opposite the commercial street, although the bars had not completely stopped yet. But there were quite a lot of men and women walking out. After all, if you left too late, you might go to the hotel to take a shower or something before dawn, and you wouldn't have the energy to do anything pleasant. Lu Chang'an looked up under the big statue. As usual, he sighed at the traces that fragile and small human beings can do their best to leave, and then went to hang out in front of the vendors at the pedestrian street. Naturally, vendors with carts on pedestrian streets during the day are not allowed to shout for business at will. They will only come out with carts after 10 o'clock. Some even occupy an area of 20 to 30 meters and put many tables and chairs to open late-night snack stalls. They can open for business to 4 or 5 in the morning. There were grilled mutton skewers with halal signs, grilled ribs, fruit boxes, and fried rice and noodles. The business was all good. Lu Chang'an ate grilled ribs, bought a fruit box, and ordered a meal. After eating the noodles together, we went home. He remembered that he was also a businessman and would sell rice noodles tomorrow morning. I will continue to work hard to update, please vote for me. Thank you to the book friends for the crowdfunding reward yesterday, and to many book friends for their generous support. Xiahua was surprised and very touched, because Xiahua's reputation and character are probably on the level of sewers, and there are still many book friends who will never leave. Not giving up makes Xiahua ashamed. Thank you to Duan Mulanquan for becoming the leader, thank you to the poor people for becoming the leader of the alliance, and thank you to the book club for sponsoring the leader. I'm really immortal. Author, Chulian Kui Kan Ru Xiahua. Chapter 160. Lu Chang'an went home and slept for a while. He got up at dawn and went to the vegetable market to buy a pullet, a rooster, and some pig spines and leg bones. The pullets are for the little girls of the Shangguan family, just throw them into the carriage. The rooster is naturally used to make spicy rooster toppings, and the bones are used to make soup. Every ingredient for soaking rice noodles is very important. The texture of the rice noodles, the spiciness of the toppings, and the aroma of the bone broth are all indispensable. Chicken soup and beef bone soup are also suitable for soaking rice noodles, but chicken soup is more suitable for light-flavored noodle soups, such as matsu take, chicken, and mushroom noodles. Beef bone soup is used to make noodles such as offal, beef, and beef balls. Lamb soup and seafood soup also have suitable types of noodles. Luchang'an's spicy red chicken noodle soup is of course best suited to use pork bone soup as the base, but it is not suitable to use chicken soup. What's more, the soup made from feed chickens bought at the wet market is not delicious enough. On the contrary, the pig breeding technology of the pig farm is mature, and the bone soup tastes good. This does not mean that any ingredient is natural and the best. For example, wild boar meat is only eaten fresh. In fact, it is not suitable for ordinary people to use it for a long time. The meat of castrated pigs is much more delicious. After Luchang'an had done all this, he took the soup and put it on Zhou Shuling's breakfast stall. At this time, Zhou Dongdong no longer needed to deliver soy milk. After setting up the stall, Luchang'an made powder for himself and Zhou Shuling, while drinking soy milk for breakfast. At dawn, the working people's day begins. There are not so many desires in life. Touching the full belly is a feeling of satisfaction. It's so lazy that it makes you want to squint your eyes, just sit on the small bench, watching people and cars coming and going, and spend the whole day in a daze. Chang'an, after summer vacation, you will go to school. What should you do with this noodle stall? Zhou Shuling asked. I applied to Xiang University, and my registered permanent residence is in the local area. There is no problem in applying for day study within 5 kilometers, Luchang'an said, taking out a sign and hanging it on the breakfast cart. Eat more now for 10 yuan a bowl, and it will start at 30 in the future, the sign read, and Zhou Shuling was surprised. Are you going to sell 31 bowls in the future? 31 bowls of noodles are certainly not unusual, but the sale of 31 bowls of noodles at this roadside stall is a bit whimsical, and don't you look at the main consumer groups? If you do business like this, you may be scolded by your regular customers. You always have to have some ideals as a person. Look at the many noodle restaurants in Junsha. Which one has a taste as unique and suitable for locals as ours? Luchang'an said calmly. Let's make some money first. Once we have the capital, we can go to the food center in Bailong Center and set up a shop, and it will be normal to sell 31 bowls there. Hearing what he said, Zhou Shuling understood. I can't afford the price if I go there early to sell. The key is to have good food. For breakfast that focuses on cost effectiveness rather than taste, it's better here. Don't you want a shop? We are partnering now, and of course we will be in the future. When the shop opens, I won't have so much time, so of course I will partner with you. Luchang'an smiled. I am still a partner now. Your landlord will also be your boss from now on, okay? Since it's a partnership, of course I'm also the boss, Zhou Shuling said with a smile. Anyway, she didn't even mention anything. She secretly sighed in her heart. It's better for young people to think about the best in everything. She never thought that she would not be able to do it. Got up, and I already had a lot of worries. After all, I owed a lot of debt and couldn't afford to lose. With this in mind, Luchang'an nodded, and couldn't help but think of Sumei. It's not that he missed her, missed her, missed her. The beauty has passed away, and all emotions should be restrained and turned into a kind of calm. It just reminded me of those years when many of my businesses were handled by Sumei. Luchang'an raised his head and looked at the Bailong Center, which seemed to be visible from any angle under the clear weather. His feeling that something was wrong about some things he encountered on Taiwan Island became much stronger. Suzayakyoi said that Sumei was dead, and Luchang'an took it as such at the time, but when he really started to doubt it, he found out that this was not news of a death with a corpse nailed in a coffin, it was just a sentence. Suzayakyoi can survive until now, but Sumei may not be able to. It's just that with Sumei's temperament, if he lives and she grows old, she may not be willing to see him, and may only do things like let Zhu Huntang marry Luchang'an to offset the grudges from the past. Sumei never knew that Luchang'an could change his appearance, so the last time Lu Chang'an changed his appearance to see Suzuki, if Sumei was still alive, Suzuki would definitely tell Sumei that young Master Ye was still the same as before. In this way, if Sumei is still alive, she will only think about looking for Yechanyu, and will not care too much about Lu Chang'an. She will probably care more about who Yechanyu and Lu Chang'an were born from. The current situation coincides with one part of Lu Chang'an's reasoning, that is, the Zhu family is indeed interested in letting Lu Chang'an and Zhu Huntang be together. According to the speculations of outsiders like Qin Yanan, Sumei may indeed make such a decision, but Lu Chang'an knows better than Qin Yanan that that is not Sumei, and Mrsu today is Suzuki. Logically speaking, Suzuki does not need to be so persistent anymore, because Suzuki does not have that kind of obsession. It can even be said that if Sumei dies and only Suzuki is left, Suzuki will not have the courage to make her own decisions and arrange such a marriage. Only Sumei has such courage. She is unscrupulous. And only when targeting Yesijin and wanting to continue some of the grievances and hatreds of the past, could it be possible to make the decision to let Zhu Huntang, the most favored member of the Zhu family, marry Lu Chang'an. In other words, this kind of thing will only happen if Sumei is still alive. Since it has happened, it is natural to infer that Sumei is still alive. Living, probably like Suzuki, her appearance is gone. Lu Chang'an made a guess, and did not rack his brains to confirm it. He was like this many times. He had an idea in his mind and was mentally prepared for trouble. As for exploring the so-called truth behind it, there are really only those mysterious natural phenomena will make him extremely interested and motivated, but things that concern people's hearts are really boring. Boss, your fan is worth 10 yuan now, right? Powdered. Lu Chang'an stood up and showed a businessman's smile. Would you like to add fried eggs? Yesterday, they only had tea eggs. Add eggs to soup noodles, and you will have a happy life, beauty, and health. Okay, add a fried egg. Lu Chang'an successfully sold an omelette and looked at the girl who was waiting for noodle soup with a smile. This girl probably never imagined that there was a being beyond human beings who served her noodle soup and omelette. People always lack the eyes and opportunities to discover the surprising things that exist around them. Even Lu Chang'an is the same. The third wife came here to eat powder again this morning, still bringing the cute and well-behaved Zhongqing with her. That's it today. My fingers have a headache. As we get older, we are really getting worse every day. Please ask for a monthly pass and choose a day to be violent again.